My name is Reuben. I'm 22 years old. I'm a worship leader at a church called Street Church in Birmingham. I think if you were to ask anybody who's I've led worship with, they would tell you my gift for music. Gift is a strong word for my musical ability, but I grew up as a pastor's kid and everyone in my family was a preacher. And I very much felt like that wasn't my call or what God had for me. And I can remember distinctly at about 12, 13 years old, praying and just saying, God, give me something that is mine. And coincidentally, or so I thought at the time, I also started learning the guitar at that time. And that was just because I thought it'd be really cool. It'd be a fun thing to do. And naturally kind of ended up in youth bands and playing a bit at church, and I was hopeless. Nobody would have called it a gift at that point. But I can remember meeting God in a time of worship where he took me back to that prayer that I prayed, and it was as though he was saying, you know, you asked for something and here it is. And what I learned in that is that sometimes gifts don't come ready to be used out the box, but they come in seed form. And really for me, it's been a process of taking that seed and just constantly going back to God with it and saying, help me use this for your glory, help me grow this, do what you want in it and through it. As I said with kind of my story, it was in a time of worship when I felt God meet me. And when I think about the church, when I think about the complexity of people's stories and lives and needs, I realized that I don't have what they need. Like, I don't have all the answers for them, but the presence of God is the place where he meets us exactly where we're at in our need. And so I wouldn't even necessarily say I'm passionate about leading people in worship, but I'm passionate about people. And as a result, I long to see them encounter God. I long to see them freed and healed and living in the fullness of their life. And for me, I think the place of worship, the place of God's presence is so important for that. And, you know, scripture tells us that God enthrones himself on the praises of his people. And so one of the easiest ways that we can corporately get into the presence of God is through worship. And so that kind of fuels my passion to lead people in worship. Yeah, I mean, there are so many Bible passages that I think about worship that have inspired me at various times. One that I always love is the image of heaven that we're shown, where the angels and the saints, every tribe and every tongue, are gathered around the throne of God, and it's all just this beautiful moment of worship where it's holy, holy, holy is the Lord, and songs like this are arising. And for me, I love that because it shows me that we're destined for worship, that when our souls kind of enter that final resting place, as it were, like that is worship. And I think there's something innate in us that longs for that here and now too. And so that's why I think, or another reason I think worship's really important, is because it's in us. Like we're made for that moment where we worship God in eternity forever. And so here and now we get to engage in that. Yeah, our English word worship comes from this Anglo-Saxon word viothscribe, which means to ascribe worth. And one of the ways in which we do that in the church is through this sacrifice of song, praise, worship that we recognize. But another way we can do that is by, you know, giving financially, because it's an expression that this thing is worth something to me. I know for me personally that I actually have quite an unhealthy relationship with money. When left unchecked, I can often find myself motivated by money or grasping after money, finding a sense of like security and identity in money. And so when I give financially, it's this moment where I say, God, you are worth more to me than my money. And so my giving becomes an act of worship. It forms a part of my worship. I think Worship Central's developed me in a number of ways, and I've had various capacities in which I've engaged with Worship Central. Initially, just as someone who enjoyed the resources they offered, music and training, and then I did their academy program, and then subsequently I've been able to help out on the academy program in kind of a mentorship capacity for people doing the academy. And I think there are a number of ways it's helped me. Firstly, it's inspired me. I've seen how God uses leaders and uses people and worship to transform people's lives. And so that inspired me. It's instructed me. The training, the resources has been really practical in giving me the skills and the necessary knowledge to grow in my calling as a worship leader. And also the element I love about Worship Central is it creates space to pray for the Spirit of God to impart something, because we recognize that it's not just about having this knowledge, this head knowledge or practical skills, but it's about a spiritual element too. And it requires an element of impartation from the Spirit to anoint us, to equip us with the Spirit necessary to lead worship. So it's inspired me, instructed me, and created space for an impartation. Worship, I believe, is so central to what we do as Christians. The power of how God can meet us in our times of worship is immense. And we know that worship leaders play a huge role in facilitating those moments for the church, for local churches all over the globe. And I think organizations like Worship Central that are committed to training people to do that to the best of their ability, to grow in their calling, are so essential, not just for the worship leader as the person engaging with it, but for the churches and the congregations that they represent. And all this stuff, we know, it costs money. Like we try to make it as accessible for as many people as possible, and oftentimes that means doing events for free or at kind of cost price or even under cost price. And so when people support the organization financially, it enables us to continue to do that. And when they support above and beyond, it enables us to make the training, the resources, the podcasts, the conferences free or as accessible as possible for people.